Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We'll give it about a minute or two to give folks a chance to join us from the waiting room, but we are excited to have you join us today. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. So welcome again, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Sarah Gagne from the admissions team at Dartmouth Engineering, and we are excited to have you here and to talk about how you can prepare a strong application to our online Master of Engineering and Computer Engineering, as well as learn more about the program itself and preview some of the courses that are being offered in the program. I wanted to mention a few logistics before we begin the session. We are recording today's session, and we will send out the recording and the slides after the event. And we'll also save some time at the end for a Q&A session. If you have questions along the way, please post them in the Q&A box, and we will address as many of them as we can during the session, as well as in the Q&A portion afterward. And then for today's agenda, we will provide an overview about the online Master of Engineering program and highlight a couple of our courses. We will also talk about the support and resources available to students throughout their time in the program and beyond. And we'll also cover some tips for applying and review our upcoming application deadlines. And now I'd like to call on each of our panelists today to briefly introduce themselves. And first, I will start with Zofia.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm Zofia Gatos. I'm the Director of Online Education at Dartmouth Engineering, and we are really excited to be launching this program with our second cohort that we're recruiting for right now. I will pass it over to one of our program faculty, Kendall Farnham.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kendall Farnham. I'm actually developing and teaching two of the courses that are part of the curriculum. So I'll be doing the FPGA course as well as machine vision, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. So glad you all are here.
Great. We'll turn it over to Mike to introduce himself.
Great. Yeah, my name is Mike Coco. I'm an assistant professor here at Thayer. I teach a number of in-person classes at our campus in Hanover, more on the mechanical engineering side of things, and I'll be teaching the distributed computing class in this program.
Great. Thank you. Turn it over to Ken.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Ken Watson. I'm the Online Education Program Manager. I work with students in this online degree program on the student experience side. So connecting you with the resources and opportunities available to you at Dartmouth as a whole.
Thank you, Ken. And we'll turn it over to Ryan.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan West, and I'll be acting as your enrollment counselor. Very glad at any point to go through questions that you have on the program, application process, anything else that's helpful.
Great. Thank you all. And now I will turn it over to Zofia to give an overview about our online MEng program.
Yep. So here's just a quick overview of the online Master of Engineering and Computer Engineering. So we welcomed our first cohort in March of 2024. Our second cohort will start this September, and then we're going to have intakes every September and March thereafter. This program is designed to be hands-on with collaborative projects that are rooted in active learning. So we really want students in this program to be getting their hands on things, and you'll get to hear about some of the ways in which we're going to be using hardware and software to really get you actively learning about computer engineering when we do some course previews later on. In the program, you're not only going to master technical skills that are necessary for virtual and augmented reality, autonomous robots, self-driving cars, AI, virtual assistants, wearable and implantable devices, and more. You'll also gain the power skills that are needed for leadership and impact. We're really trying to have students work together in teams and groups to develop some of those skills at doing engineering in teams. The program's designed with flexibility. There are 9 courses. You need to take all 9 courses to finish. You take 1 or 2 courses per 10-week term. Dartmouth is on the quarter system, so there are 4 10-week terms per year. And you can finish in as few as 15 months, depending on when you start and when your schedule is, but you can also take longer to finish. You have up to 6 years to finish the degree. So there's really, it can be flexible. We expect that many of our students are working professionals who are balancing jobs, family, and other responsibilities. So this program is designed to allow you to be able to pursue your studies while still balancing that with other things going on in your life. We'll take a look at a couple of sample course plans. And remember that we will send these slides out. So this is kind of a snapshot of what the individual courses are, as well as a potential time frame. This is just giving you an initial idea about how the pacing and the timing of your program might look, depending on if you're taking the program part-time or full-time. So part-time is defined as 1 class per term, full-time is 2 classes per term. And the exact schedules of course offerings are of course always subject to change, but this gives you an idea of what you might expect. So at the current moment, we have 7 faculty teaching in the program. These are the current faculty teaching courses right now. We have 2 of them joining us today to talk about machine vision and distributed computing as 2 of our course previews. So these are courses we haven't yet previewed in our webinar series, and we're excited to have our faculty join us to talk about these programs. So Kendall, I'll turn it over to you to talk about the machine vision course.
Awesome, thanks. Thanks, Sophia. Okay, so for the machine vision course, machine vision is in all of our lives right now. We use it, our systems are using it for facial recognition, augmented reality, character recognition, self-driving cars, anything in healthcare with autonomous delivery of medicine, as well as diagnostics, and then super resolution imaging, and the list goes on. But at a high level, a machine vision system has some sort of data input. We sense that input somehow, we interpret that input, and then we have an output, some sort of decision. So if you go to the next slide, in the course, we're basically going to be we're going to be using tools that we will also be touched on in all other aspects of this curriculum. So we'll be using machine learning. We'll be looking at computer vision algorithms. We'll be actually implementing a lot of this stuff on hardware and embedded systems. And then there's the signal processing aspect of it. And it all sort of comes together as machine vision. So more specifically, we're going to be learning about AI vision methods and techniques, 2D and 3D image processing algorithms for stereo vision, as well as hardware optimizations when you actually perform these algorithms on hardware, as opposed to doing it in software where things are performed sequentially. We're also going to be looking at machine learning models for specifically for vision and the real-time hardware and high-speed design considerations that go into these machine vision systems. And the course is all it's a hands-on learning approach. So we're going to be using hardware on your desk throughout the course and doing hands-on labs where we're going to be exploring these algorithms. And then by the end of the course, you will have built your own real-time machine vision system on the Zybo hardware board. And we'll also be looking more into programmable hardware. So we'll be getting into some of the FPGA work that you'll look at in one of the other courses, as well as some of the embedded systems topics. So it should be really fun. And by the end of it, you will have a working system, which will be pretty cool. That was all I had on this.
Okay, and I'll be teaching the distributed computing class part of this program. So most of the other classes in the program, you'll be working with individual processors. So that may be something like machine learning or deep learning or signal processing that you're doing on your own PC or laptop. It may be the FPGA class or the embedded systems class where you're working with dedicated embedded hardware that's sitting on your desk. And in this class, we'll be looking at how do you make a bigger system out of these. So we're thinking broadly in this program about intelligent systems. So we'd like to know, how can we scale to a larger network? So this class is really looking at how do we take these individual computing elements and expand them to a larger network. You may have heard about distributed computing. It's all around us in applications like cloud storage. You've heard of Google Drive, Dropbox, Amazon Web Services. Media streaming, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Spotify, Zoom, Coursera, this particular webinar are all using distributed computing to get content to you. Remote sensing is a big area. It's something we think about at Thayer and some of the research work that we do. Internet of Things, another big topic. Distributed learning, we'll be thinking about how we do machine learning and deep learning, but do that close to the source of the data. You could think about healthcare applications where maybe there are privacy concerns, where you'd like to do your learning and distill down the data you're trying to get out of, say, medical records without having a HIPAA violation. And then swarm robotics, an area that I'm really interested in as my research is more focused in the robotics side of things. So typically, as I mentioned, we're developing for a single processor, and this is really easy to develop. It's easy to test. It's easy to deploy, but this can be slow. You're limited to one processor. It's failure prone, and it's geographically constrained. Imagine if you wanted to stream Netflix and you had to connect via your network connection to Netflix, say in California, from wherever you are in the world. That wouldn't really be sustainable. It would be hard to support a large user base. So the idea in distributed systems, like the lower graphic on the slide here, is to make the client think that they're talking, or their computer is networking with a single device, whereas really behind the scenes, they're working with a number of different processors that have to coordinate together. So this allows concurrent operation. It allows the actual servers to be proximal to the data and to the end users, but these are more complicated systems to develop. They're more corner and edge cases, things that can go wrong. They're harder to test, they're harder to deploy, and that's why we have this course, so we can learn about some of the intricacies of making this happen. Next slide, please. So in this course, we're going to learn really from a systems engineering perspective how we might design and implement a distributed system. We'll learn fundamentals of networking. This may be something that you're familiar with now, or it may be brand new to you. We'll think about hardware protocol levels and the application layer of how we actually get computers or processors to talk to each other when there's not shared memory. I'll look at the building blocks of what we call concurrency, which is how we make things happen at the same time. So threading, again, is something you may or may not have had experience with. Remote procedure calls will probably be new, and we'll talk about microservices and other building blocks that we need to make a distributed system. And then finally, we'll study some of the seminal implementations that are out there, both in academia and industry, to learn about the algorithms we can use for consistency to make sure our applications are fault tolerant, and security is a real big topic in distributed systems. So just as Kendall mentioned for the machine vision class, this will be an applied learning class. It'll probably be more heavy on the programming than on the hardware. But we will be having frequent programming labs and assignments. We'll have case studies, as I mentioned, from both industry and academia. And our goal at the end of the course is to be able to have an Internet of Things implementation and to explore federated learning, which I mentioned before. If we're trying to do deep learning, we might want to, instead of learning everything on our computer on our one dedicated GPU, we might want to spread our learning out among the sources of data and then pull back together the insights that we get from that into one unified model. And that's what I have for this.
Excellent. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
So hopefully you are sufficiently excited about the curriculum that you'll be experiencing as a member of this program. But the course content is just one piece of the online Master of Engineering program. And so we'd like to tell you a little bit more about some of the opportunities and resources that are going to be available to you outside of the classroom in the form of various forms of student support. So as I mentioned in the introductory slide, my role is to work with you to connect you to these different folks, organizations and offices on campus as you're working your way towards commencement and graduation. We have put quite a bit of work into making sure that you recognize and have the value of being a true member of the Dartmouth community. Students in this remote program, just because you are not in Hanover, doesn't mean you're not a member of the Dartmouth community as much as a student who is physically on our campus. And so to that end, we have worked really closely with a number of different offices on campus to help make sure that you have all of the same assistance and support that the students in those online on-campus programs have. And so here's a short list of some of those resources that will be available to you as a student in the online program. Both Thayer and Dartmouth as a whole have their own computing services and support. Thayer computing services are obviously dedicated to the students and staff and faculty in the engineering school, and offer a really robust suite of services. They're very responsive. And so you'll have an opportunity to connect with them if you have any issues, completing the coursework in this program remotely. In addition, there are dedicated engineering librarians and library services. One of the great things about higher education is the expansive library services and connections to other libraries around the world. So you'll certainly have the opportunity to connect with our engineering libraries and librarians. We work really closely with an organization called You Will, which provides telehealth and mental wellness support for students. So even though you're not on campus and won't be able to necessarily walk into one of the student wellness centers, you will have access to the support services offered by You Will. If you'd like to have a student ID card, we can work with you to get you one of those. You'll have instructions on how to upload your picture, and we'll pick the card up for you and mail it out to you wherever you may be, so that you have the card and can show people that you're an official student. And then some of the things that are a little more intangible, like the networking opportunities and alumni association access, are really, really important. I think that, again, one of the benefits to coming to a school like Thayer and to a college like Dartmouth are the opportunities to meet some of the folks that you're going to be classmates with and your faculty members. And so the ability for you to engage with those folks in an academic setting that will hopefully foster both your professional and personal goals and experience, I think really can't be understated. And then finally, I know this seems like it's really, really far away right now, where you're still, in some cases, maybe thinking about applying, but you are welcome. We invite you now to attend the investiture and commencement ceremonies once you've finished your degree requirements. Again, you're just as much a part of the Dartmouth community as students who are on campus, and so we invite you to come to New Hampshire, put on the cap and gown, and participate in all of the commencement ceremonies that surround the celebration of your incredible achievements as you work your way through this program. Another really, I think, valuable resource available to students in the online MEng is our Thayer Career Services and the access to the career counselors within the Thayer Career Services office. This is a dedicated team of individuals who work with students at every level of their career. And we recognize that many students in this program in particular may already be working mid-level, senior level in their various roles and organizations. Our career services team still has things to offer you. And so it's never too early. We would encourage you to reach out as early as your first term in the program, to engage with them, introduce yourself, let them know what it is you're looking for from your time at Dartmouth and what your goals are after completing the program. And they, again, offer an entire suite of services that include everything from resume review and interview coaching to connecting you with potential employers and offering networking services as well. They host virtual career fairs and a number of remote opportunities for you to interact with them. So we encourage you to do so early and often while you're here at Dartmouth as an MEng student. The box at the bottom of this slide just has a few kind of examples of some of the places our organizations, our alumni have gone, and some of the titles for the positions they've held. So I'm going to, so those are just some of the student services. There are a number of others and new ones coming up all the time. And I will work with you as you work your way through this program to help identify the things that may be most valuable to you. But now I'd like to turn it over to Ryan, who can tell us a little bit more on tips for filling out your application.
All right, as you can imagine, with such a fantastic program and challenging curriculum in a very good way, it'll be important to put together a strong application to really um, have the admission committee be able to view all aspects of your background, work and education-wise, your motivation, and things from there. So we've put together a number of tips that can hopefully help you in the application process. Anytime along the way, you're always welcome to reach out to me as well. We'll have my contact information later. I can talk with you about these steps further, or if you have additional questions, go through them. But with that being said, as far as the first tip, definitely your statement of purpose is very important for the committee to really understand what is your motivation, what are your goals that you're moving towards with your career, and then of course you want to specifically focus on with the MEng degree, why this degree in particular is the right fit for you. As you can imagine, Dartmouth, they are looking for students who are highly motivated. And they also want, part of that motivation is making sure a student is in the right program. So the statement of purpose, one of the things you can certainly focus on besides your career goals and where you're looking to move forward is, as far as this program, why is it the right fit? Why do the classes provide the skill sets you're looking for? What are those skill sets? What about the approach as far as Dartmouth takes with the education process? It's not a degree where you watch a video, read a book, and recite some answers. It's a highly interactive degree where there's a lot of opportunity for engagement with your classmates and with the professors. So any of those things, other things you've identified through either time on the website, time speaking with me, or other ways of learning about the program, make sure to really identify why this degree is the right fit. Obviously, there's plenty of computer engineering degrees out there. Some people are just looking to check a box on a resume. They're not really interested in learning in depth. They just want to move through a program. Dartmouth is hoping for highly engaged students who are going beyond that. They want to get into the technical depth that's available in the program. So with that being said, the statement of purpose is very important. Don't overlook it. And again, I'm glad to go through specific questions you have, but that'll be a really important part of the process and a lot of opportunity for you to let the committee learn about you and understand what you're doing going forward. And then next, looking at the skill sets, this is a degree where you are going to need some very important skills in the areas you see on the screen there. To be prepared for the program, you're going to want to have good experience and familiarity with linear algebra, calculus, specifically multivariable calculus, probability and statistics. As far as programming languages, you'll want to have good experience in a number of different languages. So as you can see on there, Python, C, C++, and then digital logic and analog circuit fundamentals. Those are important skills that will help you through the course as well. So in the application, you have the opportunity to elaborate on those skills. What I would encourage is if you have some of those skill sets from formalized education, so from a college, don't rely just on the transcript to showcase what you understand there. There's optional short essays as part of the application where you can add additional detail on your understanding of those skills. So you may have that background from school, but if you utilize those skills in your career, right, in your day-to-day work, you have an opportunity to list that. If you've picked up skills outside of traditional 4-credit college courses, you have the ability to show that, whether it's been self-study or whether it's been learning through other non-credit courses. Take your time to really identify that. This is an important part of the application. both Dartmouth and applicants, as you can imagine, have a highly vested interest in making sure you're prepared to be successful. So it's to everybody's benefit for the committee to be able to accurately look where your skills are at and understand if you're prepared currently for the program. If you're not, obviously, that's good to know too, because that gives you a chance, if you're not ready at the current moment, to go on, maybe hone in on some of those skills, and then come back at a later point and potentially apply at that time. But take your time to really elaborate, give good background on how you acquired these skills, the depth of the skills, how current you are in terms of using them. Those are all important things.
So I'm going to jump in here and offer up tip number 3, which is, I think, based around the idea that this program is, as we've talked about, highly interactive and highly engaging. Just about every course in the degree will require some level of group work. And so it is really helpful for the admissions committee to have a sense of your experience either in technical or professional group work. If you are a new graduate or have recently entered the workforce, you can use this space to talk about work you've done in an academic setting as well. But it just helps us kind of gain a sense of how you engage with others, the way that you prefer to conduct group work. Partly to make sure that you know, when it comes time to group students together, that we can do our best to try to mix and match students so that they're in groups that are conducive to their work style and environment, but also gives us a sense of your experience. And so if you've started the application, you may have seen this can either be kind of incorporated into your statement of intent, or there's a separate section, and I should say there's a separate section for you to specifically discuss your group experience. So it's not just a kind of a throwaway thing that you should kind of gloss over. Please take some time to use that space to tell us the way you work in a group setting, some of your experiences in those group settings, so that we can ensure that this type of highly interactive and engaging degree program is, as Ryan said, the right fit.
And as far as recommendations, another really important part of the application, recommendations are ideally there to help give the committee additional details, a different perspective, outside perspective, things beyond what's already been shared in your application. So with that being said, you can utilize recommendations or recommenders from a number of different areas. Certainly academic is a worthwhile means. So if you have contact, if it's been a program you've recently graduated or a while back, and you have somebody, a professor ideally, that can speak to your coursework, important things from their engagement, your grasp of the knowledge, then certainly that would be applicable. What I would recommend is making sure that you're able to speak with the individual for any recommender, confirm ahead of time that they're willing to be able to provide the recommendation. That way they know to look for the communication, because you'll have an email sent from your applicant portal. Also, you want to make sure they can commit to the time frame that's needed. So with an application deadline coming up on July 15th, first of all, this is a perfect time. One of the first steps you can do in your application is confirm and then send out the recommendation request. And also, I would build in a little extra time. So definitely, you know, with July 15th, see if they can commit to potentially a week before that, building in some time. It relieves stress. It gives them a little bit more flexibility too. But from that, with other avenues, you can look at professional. Obviously, in a degree program where there are a lot of working professionals, this is an important one. Ideally, you would want to have somebody in an immediate line of supervision, right? Some type of management or supervisory position. There are other professional contacts that we can explore. I would encourage, if you are wondering about somebody, reach out to me. We can talk about their connection with you in the professional environment, and their ability to speak to your skill sets and things from there. But you can use prior professional contacts as well. The one thing you want to be careful with there is make sure that they're able to speak to your current skill set. So if it is somebody formerly who is in a position, as long as they understand where you're currently at, what abilities you have, they can speak to the particulars. That is something to explore. But of course, getting a current supervisor would be ideal. And then the military, Dartmouth certainly appreciates veterans and active duty people who have served in the military. So if you have military experience, feel free. You can actually use somebody from that line of command or chain of command for a recommender as well. But again, questions you have on specifics, let me know. I do encourage always ask them to provide as much detail as possible, not generic answers. That doesn't really give the committee a lot of additional things to look at. It doesn't strengthen your application. The more specifics they're able to talk to, the more chance you have of having a strong application. And volunteer experience as well. You can see on the bottom screen there too. That can be an acceptable avenue. You want to make sure that the volunteer experience does tie into something within this career path and program. So again, we can talk about that if that's an avenue you're looking at.
Thanks, Ryan. And then kind of in that same vein of the recommendation letter. So if you've begun the application, you've likely seen that the letters of recommendation can be requested directly from the application portal itself. So there's no need for recommenders to email the school directly, or for them to in fact, they cannot. We ask that they do not give the letters to you and then have you upload them. Those recommendations should be sent directly through the portal. And so within that invitation to submit a recommendation, there is an explanation on the requested format that we would like to have the letters submitted in, including the fact that the letter should be on the company or institutional letterhead. We have a number of kind of safeguards built into the application portal just to kind of ensure the validity and security of the applications that are being submitted. And so when letters are submitted on the institutional letterhead, it helps us just kind of reconfirm the validity of the letters that are being sent. We understand that there may be some circumstances in which a letter of recommendation cannot be submitted on a company letterhead. And so if that's the case, we would just ask for a short note telling us that is in fact company policy, and explaining why the letter needs to be submitted without that letterhead. But to the extent possible, we do ask that the recommenders submit the letter format to ensure that everything is received without any problem. So hopefully those 5 tips will give you some food for thought on how to best prepare your application. We do want to touch briefly before we go into the deadline dates on financial aid. And so just quickly, we can point out that this degree program is eligible for all of the same financial aid that the on-campus programs are eligible for. So as a U.S. citizen or permanent resident of the United States, that includes federal financial aid available through the Department of Education. But students are certainly welcome to and encouraged to seek scholarships and grants in other forms and from other providers. Our colleagues at Coursera have developed a really robust list for identifying means for financing education. And so if you haven't had a chance to take a look at their website and the list of different resources available to students for financing purposes, then we would certainly encourage you to do that. Another thing that maybe doesn't necessarily come up on some of those databases, but is certainly worth exploring, is employer tuition reimbursement. And so in many cases, if you are working, many organizations will offer either tuition remission, where they pay the tuition for you, or tuition reimbursement, where they'll pay you back for tuition you've paid. It certainly is worth talking to a supervisor, or if your organization is large enough, your benefits office and your human resources department. Find out if this is available to you. We have plenty of students who take advantage of it. So, and we can work with you on a individual basis to set up whatever kind of verification you may need to take advantage of that. In most cases, to be considered eligible for financial aid, you need to be enrolled at least part-time, which in the case of this program is 1 course per term. So as long as you're taking 1 class, then you should be eligible for most of the forms of financial aid here. And again, we can work with you. We have folks in our office who specialize in financial aid. We can work with you on a one-on-one basis to try to make sure that all of your questions get answered, so that financing your education is not a stress that you encounter. Great, Ryan, do you want to tell us a little bit more about the application upcoming deadlines?
Absolutely. So for the fall semester, as you can see, classes start September 16th. The final deadline is coming up July 15th. So you'll want to make sure that you have your applications completed, submitted, and ready for review by then. What you'll see is, as far as the review, it'll begin right after the deadline. And as we alluded to earlier in some of the application tips, but they look at all parts of the application. So again, it's looked at holistically. That's a great benefit as an applicant, because you're not being looked at in just one particular area. All things are considered. So just make sure to do your best to represent yourself well. There's even additional documents, as we mentioned before, optional documents. There's a life perspective statement and other things that you can include in your application to strengthen that. But for the fall deadline, you'll want to have, again, by July 15th. And then the spring session coming up in March, we'll have the priority application deadline will be coming up on November 15th. And then the final deadline will be December 15th. That's for classes that begin March 31st. The priority application deadline for that, if you get things in for the spring semester by November 15th, you'll have the opportunity to have your application fee waived, and you will get a sooner decision. So certainly, if you're able to, a lot of times people like to get decisions as quickly as possible, and always helpful to have any cost savings. So certainly look at that November 15th if you're able to. One important thing to note, if you are looking at the spring semester and you want a even earlier decision, you are able to submit your spring application by the July 15th deadline, which is for the fall semester. And fantastic opportunity. Dartmouth will review your application at that time for spring. So if you want an earlier decision, instead of waiting until the end of the year, feel free to complete your spring application by July 15th.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much to all of our panelists today for sharing their insights about applying to our program, and to Mike and Kendall as well for giving some insights about some of our courses in the program. So now we'd like to open it up to a Q&A session. We've been working on addressing questions along the way in the Q&A portion, so please feel free to review those answers there. And as you have new questions, please feel free to post them in the Q&A, and we will work on addressing some of those live. The first question that I think would be helpful to address, and Sophia, I know you answered this already, but if you could talk a little bit about the cohort size in the program, and Ken, if you have insights there too, I think that's a helpful question to address.
Yeah, so at this point, we're anticipating a cohort of something like 30 to 40 students for this fall, and then expect the cohorts to grow gradually in the years to come. We are aiming for incoming cohorts of around 100 students at our steady state. So if you've heard of different online programs where they're aiming for like thousands of students, this is not a thousands of students online program. This is a much smaller online program where we're going to be bringing in around 100 students at a time at our max across 2 cohorts per year. So it's small, it's personal. You really will get to know the faculty and the other students in the cohort.
Great, thanks, Sophia. Another question that we got, and Ken or Sophia, feel free to address this, but someone is wondering about if a thesis is required, or if there's an optional track that would allow for an in-depth research project as part of a capstone project.
No thesis for this particular program, at least not at this point in time. The capstone is really designed to draw together everything that you've learned throughout the rest of the courses in the program. So there is not a specific thesis for this program.
Thank you. Kendall, I know you've already answered this question in the chat, but if you wouldn't mind reiterating it here, the question is, would there be opportunity to participate in projects outside coursework in the field of FPGA, MV, ML?
Yes, absolutely. So basically, I'm trying to use the boards, the hardware that we have as like a learning platform, so to speak. So there will be, the required assignments where, this is the project that we're working on for this week, and it's going to teach you XYZ that we're covering in this module. But then if you have like particular interest on that, we're going to have sort of like optional offshoot projects where you can go more in depth into specific aspects of like that we're learning that week, or we're referring back to previous modules that we've already covered, because a lot of this stuff really ties nicely together. So we get to week 6 and like maybe something we learned in week 3 is also applicable, but if you don't have the bandwidth, let's learn week 6 stuff. If you do have the bandwidth and you're psyched about it, like here's the option to kind of like tie it all together. And then similarly in the machine vision course, machine vision is going to be more of a hybrid where if you're really interested in the hardware aspect, the final project will be, you'll have the opportunity to actually like perform an optimized machine vision algorithm on your hardware, like write that custom code. If you're more interested in software, there is an equally cool opportunity to develop that project in software. So trying to tailor it towards like your specific interests and like get you to where you want to be for like your next step in industry and career. So yes, short answer, yes.
Great, thank you, Kendall. Let's see. I know we've addressed this question in the chat, but Ken, I'll turn this to you. Are enrolled students welcome to come to campus to meet their professors or visit campus? I know you touched upon this earlier, but I think it'd be helpful to mention again here as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. We encourage you to come. I think the differentiation here is that it's not a requirement. There's no residency requirement for the online Master of Engineering program. So there are no, other online programs sometimes have a weekend intensive or something like that students need to travel to campus to participate in. There's no required visiting of Dartmouth to satisfy degree requirements. Having said that, if you are in the New England area or if you will be traveling or passing through and you'd like to come to campus, we would certainly welcome you. You absolutely can come and meet your faculty as long as you give them a heads up that you will be there and make an appointment, ideally. We've had a student actually from our fall cohort who was here for a week just a couple weeks ago and was able to not only meet with faculty, but participate in some of the on-campus events and programming that were occurring around our commencement and investiture ceremonies. Yes, certainly we hope that you will come to campus. I think it helps to establish kind of a sense of again, the Dartmouth community, but also gives you a sense of, the fact that we are here. There are people here. This is not just something that exists on the Coursera platform or on the internet, but there is is backed by the college. So if you are able to come, we'd love to have you. You can always send us an email, and I can help kind of set up some of those meetings with faculty and let you know about what's going on campus when you're able to visit. So yes, please come see us.
Great. Thanks, Ken. Ryan, I'd like to direct this next question to you. We've gotten some questions about as candidates are assessing their their backgrounds and their familiarity and comfort with some of the different recommended knowledge that we recommend students have for the program. Could you explain a little bit about how you might guide applicants through sort of like assessing sort of, where there may be potential gaps, or how would you sort of advise them as they're trying to figure out if they have the right backgrounds for the program?
Sure, absolutely. So in general, right, for the mathematics and programming skills, you'll want to have a firm grasp on those. And there's opportunities you'll want to take to refresh on those if possible before you start the program. Some of that we can discuss one-on-one because I understand situations vary, but in general, if you have those skills through traditional 4-credit college education, so let's say you have the mathematics skills and or the programming skills through college coursework, the transcripts are available for the admission committee to review. That gives them the most in-depth opportunity to formally gauge your skills where they're at, correct? So you have a transcript, a formal grading system from a school where there's good depth in the material. That's a good starting place. If you don't have formal coursework from there, then what'll be important is to gauge whether it's been through self-study, whether it's been through other type of courses. I know there's a lot of online platforms where you can take free courses or different things from there. There's MOOCs, massively open online content, which is great opportunity to learn some of those skills. And then maybe through work. In those cases, there's not as much of a formal way for the admission committee to gauge your depth in that area. So that's where it's so important, as we talked about earlier, give them as much as possible on the application to understand what particular skills do you have in those areas? How did you gain them? How often do you use them? Making it clear for the admission committee, your level of expertise in that is really the most important thing. Again, I know there's a lot of one-on-one situations. I'm very glad to talk individually on that, but do ensure if you don't have 4-credit or formal college coursework in those skills that you take as much time to demonstrate that. If you're not sure, the great thing is also there are some opportunities where maybe you can take some courses as you're waiting for the application deadline. I understand the fall deadline's coming up quickly, but for the spring, this would be a great opportunity to get a jump start on courses from there. Dartmouth has some courses that can be recommended, and certainly if you have questions on other ones you're looking at and want to verify if those would be applicable, I'm glad to go through that. And lastly, in the application, if you are planning on taking some refreshers, or if there's a particular area where you don't feel you quite had as much as you'd like to have as far as previous experience, if you're not able to complete that by the deadline, but you are planning to study that going into classes, let them know on the application. It doesn't hurt. Obviously, it's easier for them to verify if there's been completed courses or learning in those areas, but at least put it that it's in your plans, especially if it's refreshing. That always helps if you're planning on refreshing mathematics because it's been a while. Let them know that in the application. That gives them a good idea of your motivation and that you're going to be coming in fresh with those skills. Hopefully that answers. I know it's a general kind of question, but hopefully that helps a little bit there.
That was great insight, Ryan. Thank you. Ken, I'll direct this next question to you. Seeing some people are just wondering in terms of the review timeline from when someone is applying for our deadlines for the fall, but when they could anticipate potentially hearing decisions back from us.
Sure. So we, for this program, we do not do rolling admissions, which are essentially like as soon as an application comes in, we review it and then release an admissions decision. Because we have these application deadlines, we collect the applications, and then once that deadline has passed, we do a thorough review. It goes through our admissions committee and our faculty look at it, and then admissions decisions are released. Typically, 2 to 3 weeks after that is what we tend to shoot for. Students who applied prior to the, if you happen to have applied prior to the for the priority deadline, we are just finishing up some of the reviews for those applications, and we're hoping to get admissions decisions out in at the beginning of July, which I realize is next week. And so that type of kind of time frame, about 3 weeks, it helps us ensure that we're giving your applications, the due diligence and time that they deserve. You put the work in to submitting an application and putting your best foot forward. We want to make sure that we give it the time and attention that it deserves. And so as a result, it's generally in that 2 to 3 week time frame once the deadline has passed. So I know that some folks applied well in advance, and that's fantastic. We love that you're on top of things and are able to get your application in well ahead of the deadline. It may mean that you are waiting a little bit longer to hear back, but please rest assured we've not forgotten about you. We just do our application reviews in a batch and then make those decisions about 2 or 3 weeks after the deadline.
Great. Thanks, Ken. Let's see, this next question can also direct towards you, and Zofia, feel free to chime in. But someone is asking about, as we're building our cohorts, is the intent to bring in individuals from different backgrounds, or are we specifically looking for software and computer engineers?
I would say that yes, we certainly are approaching this from a diversity perspective in terms of folks' backgrounds and where they are in their career trajectory and what has brought them to this program. There's certainly value, I think, in bringing together students who have studied in different fields, maybe different STEM fields, or came to STEM after, even in some cases after they completed an undergraduate degree. No, the answer to your question is no, we are not looking just for computer engineering, folks with a computer engineering or a CS background. And I think, again, this speaks to that kind of holistic review of the application, right? So we're not just looking at your previous transcripts. It's part of why the statement of intent is so important, because it helps us understand and get a full picture of if you came from a background and an academic background different to CE, what brought you here, and how did you get to the point that you feel like this degree program would be the next best step for you? So we absolutely value diverse backgrounds in our students, both personally and professionally, and we are looking for students from all walks of life and from all backgrounds to help kind of provide the most value and return on investment to students enrolled in this program. Zofia, did I miss anything?
No, I think that covers it, right? There's no specific background and specific pathway to prepare you for success in this program. Like, there's not one student profile that we are specifically looking for. And I really want to emphasize that, say you have your bachelor's degree from like 20 years ago in like something totally unrelated to engineering, but you've been working in engineering for the past 20 years, like, you transitioned fields, or maybe you transitioned like 15 years ago or something. If you have substantial professional experience in engineering or computer science, that can definitely make you a strong applicant to the program. So it's not like your undergraduate degree doesn't need to be in computer engineering. You do need experience in some of these areas, but you don't need to have it. There's no one specific path to have gained that experience.
Great. Thank you, Ken and Zofia. Let's see, another question I'll direct towards either Kendall and or Mike. For students who maybe are thinking about wanting to go on to a PhD program after completing this program, if you wanted to speak a little bit about either how like the program could set them up on the pathway for a PhD or what that process might look like.
I can speak a little bit to that, and maybe Kendall can chime in as well. I mean, this particular program is not necessarily set up as a feeder into a Dartmouth PhD program. So I think there would need to be an application process after that. That said, I know a lot of the questions in the Q&A were about research and research opportunities. On campus, we have a really robust research community and really robust participation from our undergraduate population in research. engineering master's programs are a little bit smaller on campus. And so some of those programs do have a research component. I don't see any reason why, if you were to apply and be accepted into this program, that you would not be able to reach out to faculty who are working on campus and propose a collaboration. I don't know if there would be stipend funding. I think that's something that we would have to work out. But in terms of getting research experience and plugging in with a research group, that's definitely, if you're interested, that's something that faculty in the program could help connect you either with our own research or research that is being done by other faculty at Dartmouth. So I think that there are opportunities. I don't know that there's a formal mechanism in place at the moment, but again, we have precedent with a strong undergrad participation in research. So I think that that's certainly something, if there's the right opportunity and the right fit with a faculty member, that we could help facilitate. Kendall, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, just to add to that a little, I will say, like, all of the professors in this program are Dartmouth professors who work on campus, and so we all do research. So if you find someone that you have a connection with, or that you're interested in what you've learned in the class, like, they're definitely like, having that conversation would be an easy thing to do. But as far as like doing research as part of the courses, that's not something that we're looking into right now. You know, of course, there's going to be the industry applications and whatnot, but and learning the skill sets, but not research in particular.
Great. Thank you, Kendall and Mike. Okay. Ken, Sophia, and Orion, are there any, as we look to wrap up the session here, are there any outstanding questions that would be helpful to cover in the few minutes that we have remaining? And I will add too that our email addresses are on the screen. So if you have questions about the program, or you want to connect with Ryan afterwards and ask more about the admissions or the application process, you're more than welcome to email our teams, and we will be happy to get back to you with answers to your questions.
Yeah, I'd say for me, one of the biggest things is, if you're wondering, if you're not sure, you're wondering if you're potentially a good fit, anything from there, that is absolutely worth a conversation. So please don't pass up that opportunity to at least have a discussion if you're feeling maybe you don't have the right qualifications, because that discussion could lead to potentially maybe you finding out you're more qualified than you would guess, or give you some good ideas for the future on how you could prepare for this program and acquire some of those skill sets. So please, my opinion, there's never a silly question. There's never a question not worth asking. As we mentioned, my contact information will be on there, so don't hesitate to reach out.
Great. Thank you, Ryan. I know we're typing up our last minute responses to some of the questions in the Q&A too. Okay, so without further ado, I do want to thank everyone for joining us today, for the great questions that you've asked and the great discussions that we've had today. We're very excited about your interest in our program. So please don't hesitate at any point to reach out to us with any questions, and we'd be more than happy to speak with you. And with that, I want to thank everyone for their time and wish everyone a good rest of their day.